So here's a headline that I just read. It says, "Don't buy a house in 2024 and why you'll regret your decision."
Did they give a reason why? I'm just curious. Right. So here's the reality of that. Listen, any year could be a year to buy a house or not to buy a house. The reality is that I don't think 2024 is a bad year to buy a house at all. As a matter of fact, right now, if you're in South Florida, this middle of 2024 right now is not a bad time to buy a house because you're not facing a ton of competition. And there's a decent amount of inventory out there. We're not in the battles that we were, and the rates have come down. If you're waiting for rates to come down to 3%, then you're never going to buy a house. I mean, there was a statistic I saw something about, in 1978, if you were, because the rate was whatever it was. Now, actually, I'll use my example. So the house that I bought, the first house that I bought was 93, maybe, somewhere around there, 92. And I was super stoked to get under 10%. And I got a 9.87 or something like that. And the only reason that is because it was a VA loan, because you couldn't get under 10% unless you had a VA loan. I don't know, that'd be one reason they might say don't buy one because of the rates. But guess what? 6.5, which is roughly where we're at about now, and it's probably going to go slightly lower than that. That ain't bad historically speaking, right? Rates honestly in my mind should have never got to 3 or sub 3. I've got a 2.7 something percent rate on my house in Key Largo, which is insane. That ain't coming back, and that's VA also again. So, it comes down to the same thing. I think it comes down to all the time and every year, right? The best time to buy a house is when you need to buy a house, you want to buy a house, and you can afford to buy a house. The best time not to buy a house is when you can't afford to buy a house, or when you don't really have a need to buy a house. I mean, it shouldn't be really a vanity purchase. It can be once you're wealthy enough. But the reality is you need to look at the financial aspects and how it affects you. The biggest thing right now is the parity between mortgage payments and rent. And let's just take renting versus purchasing right now. And today, this is 2024. So to rent a property these days, you need generally first, last, and security up front, right? Whatever that number is. Let's just say for an average rent here in Wellington, $3,000. So you're at $9,000 that you need up front to rent a property. If you look at all the programs that lenders have right now, including the grant money and things like that almost all of them have, that's basically free money. It's here's $500 to $7,500 just to use us as your lender. Then you've got Hometown Heroes, which is everybody that's employed with a South Florida company, which is up to $35,000 that you can also use toward upfront costs. You can buy a house a lot of times with less money down than you can rent a place, and that's the upfront cost, right? Then the next thing you have to look at is on that $3,000 rental for a single family home here in Wellington, is my mortgage going to be $3,000? Is it going to be more than $3,000? Is it going to be less than $3,000? Depends. Again, with the rate it is today, obviously everything depends on the price of the home you buy and all that sort of stuff. Although with rentals, it's much more generic too. I mean, there's houses that may sell for $500,000 up to maybe almost $700,000, and they're all still in that $3,000 range on renting them because rent is more based on bedrooms than all kind of other factors. But that's another story. But the bottom line is that there's a good chance that you're still going to be able to achieve a monthly payment less than that amount that you'd be paying in rent, particularly if you use one of the programs like a 2-1 buy down. And 2-1 buy down right now, basically your first year mortgage rate is going to be about 4.5%, right? And at 4.5%, you're not going to have any trouble staying below that number. The second year to be at 5.5, third year probably 6.5. And I'm using that number. That's not the exact number today, but that's roughly where we're at, right? There's more reasons in my mind that say that yes, you should buy a house in 2024 than should not. So I'm not really sure. I mean, we do it on this channel too. The headlines that we read because obviously we want you to watch our videos, but honestly, I think there's no huge reason not to buy a house in 2024 any more than there is in any other year. That's my answer to that